Okay, recording started. Um, okay, so we have a bunch of people. What happened over the past month? I did some changes to the pair ID thing. I saw Bartek that you made some comments, and there is another merge request with a better way to do it. I have yet to read it yet.
Yes, yes. And I closed your merge request today because guys told me that they prefer another solution specific to providing per RD. But honestly, I have doubts if his thinking is totally correct. And maybe I will retrieve some comments from your changes directly adding per ID to virtual operation instead holding their original extension, which they prefer, because adding extension to virtual operation allows to have common processing of virtual operations and regular operations specific to recurrent transfer at, for example, balance tracker side.
Hmm.
To me personally, from one side, it has such benefits. From other side, maybe it is somehow overcomplicated. But I need to think about it more. And one of important benefits of our merge requests were associated link of other merge requests specific to helper libraries and supporting such change there.
Yeah.
So please, in the future, add such links and such helper merge request to created one, because otherwise it is impossible to pass tests if we change some structures. So finally, mm, mm, I will try to decide tomorrow if we want to have pure per ID field in virtual operations, or but that will force another changes, for example, in balance tracker, which right now is actually ready for
Mm.
processing such operations. That's what one of reasons why they decided to go this way, and let you know. Probably will take back some comment from your merge request and pass it to our one. Anyway, definitely this change will be completed soon because we need that.
Yeah. I mean, no pressure, honestly. But at this point, the code is there. So regardless of which solution we want to go to, the you can just pick commits from it, and that's fine. Um, like I'm fine with both solutions, is what I'm saying. Uh, regarding HiveMind, I've been going very deep into notifications, especially now that we've done like a first overall, especially regarding the community notifications. And I realized that most notifications were not going to users at the end of the day. I opened a bunch of issues and I started working on a bunch of merge requests. I so the first issue is that the right now the way notification work from communities is that it's Python based in the sense that the it's not SQL based where like with a bunch of the other notifications where it's directly sent into notifications cache. And in the Python implementation, there is a limit so that any block, any notification will not be added if the block is lower than hard fork 24, which means that basically all of the tests happen at before block 5 million. And so basically I realized that there is not a single test for any community notification, which is why all community notification is actually broken right now. Uh, so that's going great. Um,
Okay,
uh,
that's the where you were talking about setting that option to
yeah, so I have
more. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I have one merge request regarding this that's already live with all of the tests up to date. On top of it, I'm making a bunch of other changes. All of this is another merge request, of course. Namely, changes are one, when you flag a post, basically you can enter why you flag that. Basically, there's a feature which is called flag post where, sorry, it's gonna be very long. When you flag a post, you can be like, it's a way for users to be like, hey, moderators, I think this post doesn't belong in this community. You should mute it.
Yes, it's like not matching the rules or whatever the community.
The issue is that currently, when you flag a post, it doesn't go anywhere. In the database, the destinator is set to null. So that's fun. The issue, I'm bringing it up because I made an issue
Just to be
about
clear,
it.
it's written to the database, but it's just not with the destination, so nobody gets notified.
It's
Is that
written
right?
It's written in the database with a null destination. Yeah.
Yeah. So no one actually sees it because the queries don't report that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is a lot of stuff like
So-
this.
So all their destinations are normally a single account.
Yes.
So in the case of something like this, are you thinking of having a way to notify all the moderators of a community or somehow, or
Yeah.
like we'd have like a group, or how are you thinking of doing that?
I made an issue about it, discussing basically. I'm like, I don't think there is that much of a risk of like notifying all of the moderators, like anyone who
Yeah,
has
I
a role.
agree. I mean, I saw your issues. I did read through them, so I know what you're talking about.
But like, and realistically, I don't think it's like there is an attack vector where someone could like spam the database realistically, but like every flag is relatively minimal, and I don't think it's the end of the world to
Yeah,
implement
I think
a
that would
security.
be okay too.
Yeah,
It's not, Postgres can easily handle this.
yeah. So I think, I mean, we might as well implement like 100 moderator limits on communities at the same time. And like, if a community becomes so huge that they need more than 100
Sure.
moderators, maybe we can.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's like the way
Yeah, I
we
agree
rate
with
limited everything to 100, to 1,000. I think it's like just like sanity, just in case.
Yep.
I'll probably make a merge request for this later. Right now, I'm cleaning a bunch of stuff. Like, for instance, in the original implementation for communities, when you pin a post, when you unpin a post, when you set that's supposed to make its way back to the user. Currently, it doesn't. So that's all the things that I'm working on. Also, most notifications.
So a quick question about the, so when you're talking about changing the code for the notification stuff, are you going to be converting it from, you said it was written in Python. Are you also going to convert it to SQL in that process, or?
That's going to be part 2. Part 1 is like, I think part 1 we make sure that it actually makes its way to users.
Okay.
Part 2 is part of the wider project that's pretty much going to be my year, is to make communities be more SQL focused instead of being right now this blob of Python.
Okay.
The goal is to convert most of this like big Python file is to make that into some proper SQL code.
Just as something to try, you might see how AI does on it.
So yes, that's one other thing. What was I thinking about? Oh yeah, and so the main thing also is that we have, we talked about this like last month. There is one big, basically right now there is 2 tables for notifications, Hive notifs and Hive notifs cache.
Mhm.
And right now, because initially the idea was Hive notifs would have all of the notifications ever, and Hive notifs cache would have the last 90 days. But due to all of the changes that we've done, currently Hive notifs, which is supposed to hold everything, has only like some community notifications and some like errors, and that's like basically it's like 300k rows, and then Hive notifs has the last like 90 days with everything, and so that's also another overhaul that I'm doing. It basically we can drop this table because this table is not queried by any query, and the approach that we have right now is that we don't need the history more than 90 days. So that's going to go away also. Yeah, I mean, overall it's quite positive because it's not a lot of very hard changes, but it's going to increase the UX for community users quite a lot. Because like right now when you post, let's say you make a post, like you get muted, you don't actually get a notification telling you why you were muted. Like basically a lot of errors that is like embedded in the initial community code never makes its way back to the user. So that's gonna be neat. Right now I'm mostly I think I've finished doing all of the analysis of the code and what needs to be done. I wrote a bunch of tests so that and it's all in one merge request, so that now I can start making changes and making sure that this doesn't break other stuff. So yeah, sorry for the long report, but that's pretty much what I'm doing. I mean, this big overhaul, it shouldn't be that long or complicated. I expect to be done with like this thing by the end of this month or maybe August, and then I'll start the big process of converting everything to SQL.
Okay, sounds good. Another question for you, just from the I think the mesh, is it called mesh now?
Yeah, mesh API.
What's the status of all that stuff?
That is done right now. It's more about on Crimson and the Exchange team, I would say. I shouldn't name Crimson by name because I know she's doing many things. But yeah, right now basically it's like in the weeds with Coinbase, where we are waiting for Coinbase to reply to us and review our implementation.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's all for me.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. So one of the big things we've been doing recently, I guess I've mentioned it maybe a little bit before, is we've been modifying HiveD's the way it handles the state file, the shared memory file. And so we changed the way memory is allocated in it. So before we just used the default memory allocator, now we have custom block-based allocators to allocate memory more efficiently. And so that dropped. And another thing we did besides the allocators, we also moved a bunch of the comment data out of the memory storage into a RocksDB database. And between those two changes, the memory map file, so this is the kind of thing that people, it's the file that they set the size of, and sometimes they set it wrong or whatever. We dropped it down from 24 gigabytes to 6 gigabytes. So quite a substantial drop in the amount of the size of the memory map file. And so that got me thinking, one of the things we do now to do replays fast is we put the memory map file first into like a RAM disk and replay inside the RAM disk, and then move it to disk. But I got to thinking, with it only 6 gigabytes, it felt like we should be able to get it to where we didn't have to do that anymore. So I've been doing a lot of experiments the last week with this new version, where I don't use a RAM disk, and I'm not doing HiveD replays. I'm actually doing half replays because that's what I'm especially interested in. And I've actually managed to get it, surprisingly, down to where it's actually a little bit faster replaying now than it was even with the RAM disk, except it's all on disk. So that's been pretty cool. I've got on our fast machine, I can replay half in 10 hours on it now, and then another, I think, 2.5 hours to create the indexes afterwards. So that's pretty neat. But this means, this is a big reduction in requirements for anyone running HiveD now. This a substantially smaller system can now run HiveD than was ever possible before. Other things going on in HiveD, this is a kind of quality of life issue for libraries. HiveD, a lot of HiveD errors were just strings. And so we've added error codes for all the HiveD error messages now. And these error codes are exposed at the HiveD protocol level, which is like a layer that just describes, it's like an interface layer for HiveD that you can interact with. And so Wax uses this protocol layer to figure out how to talk to HiveD, for instance. And so this change means that libraries like Wax no longer need to parse the error messages. They can just check the error code. So this fixes problems. This also, so not only does it reduce the parsing, which of course is an efficiency thing, but moreover, it also, if we change the error strings or something like that, it won't break applications as a result, just because they're looking for the wrong thing in the error message. So I think that'll be a nice, simple improvement. Oh yeah, go for it. Spirit Search, feel free.
Yeah, so quick question. This was regarding the former point that you said. You talked about dropping the size to 6 gigabytes. So my question was, can you drop it even further? Like, have you just started optimizing, or are you like done optimizing?
That's a good question. I think this will be the major one because, we can only, 24 to 6 is a big drop. Obviously, we can't do that again. But yeah, you're correct. I think there are plans. Bartek had said I talked to him before the meeting, and he mentioned they had some ideas for removing more data as well from there, of course, in the future. But we don't really know, how much the improvement will be until we actually try something like that.
Actually, we can know which another step can reduce how much can reduce another step of memory, and removing market history data from HiveD can reduce allocation by another half gigabyte. So maybe previously it was not so significant amount, but right now it starts to be quite important number, and I hope maybe we can go down under 5 soon.
So the idea, what he's talking about there would basically move the market data to, I guess we have an API now at the half level for marketing
Yes,
data.
yes, exactly. That's simple explanation how to do that.
One of the developers says that the goal is to make HiveD running on his phone. But remember that we go down from 60 to 16 gigabytes after we forked, and our competition went from 60 gigabytes to 300 gigabytes. So
yeah, even the 24 gigabytes was quite a big improvement. Yeah, people forget that probably at this point, but it is nice to get down to 6. That's still a nice improvement, especially running on small machines. And yeah, I think it's quite feasible that we can indeed get to the point where we run on phones. I don't think that's something that's out of the picture.
I was today on a conference, and I was recalling with representatives of data center about our use case when there used to be like 10 dedicated servers with 64 gigabytes of RAM, and then
256, right? Are you talking about during the Steam days or the Hive days?
Yes, during the Steam days. And
well, that was 250 gigabytes.
Oh no, the early ones, and then they moved to
Okay.
AWS, and like $1 million later, we know how it ended. So making sure that we can, I mean, that's the most important goal, because in fact we are fighting for decentralization by reducing these requirements, because then not only if you have some crazy powerful server in data center, you can have like desktop computer and run HiveD.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely feasible now. I mean, a standard desktop server isn't going to have any trouble running HiveD at this point. Even half isn't too much more of a load, honestly. It's just mostly the NVMe drives, and who doesn't have NVMe drives on their new computer nowadays? It's to the point where I think hard disks are kind of going out of fashion for the most part. Let's see what else. So another interesting thing, I guess, is we're adding Swagger definitions for the HiveD APIs. So we already did this for all the half apps, as people probably know. You could go to a Swagger description is like basically allows you to go to a web page and try out the API calls for that API straight from the web page. So it's quite nice when you're trying to learn how to use a new API. And so we already had that for the half apps like Haffa and the Balance Tracker and the Block Explorer. But now we're adding similar Swagger pages for HiveD itself. So the APIs that it has, like the database API, etc. And another consequence of that is that'll also allow us to generate, we'll be able to generate coverings for those APIs, and we can auto generate basically from those descriptions. We can generate bindings for WAX and Python, especially Python version of WAX. So that's pretty much it on, I mean, there's more stuff on HiveD, but that's the main things I think would be interesting to you guys. On Balance Tracker, we added a new feature about almost a month ago, so pretty long time ago, to track savings balances, just like it tracks regular balances. And I think probably the Block Explorer is using that now. I don't know. I'll have to ask McFarhat, but I think it probably reports that now. And he says yes. Let's see. And then on the half side of things, we added a new feature to half to the loop, the main loop, so that it'll automatically detect if a half application is processing blocks too slowly. So in other words, each block, a half app has to process each block as it comes in during live sync. And so if it's taking longer than 3 seconds, you know, if in other words, if it's going to start falling behind, it'll start logging warnings that the app, any app that's falling behind will get reported that way. And this requires the app to be using the standard main loop architecture. But for most all the apps we develop, they do that. Let's see. Another thing, when I was kind of reading through Postgres stuff, I found out about a new thing I didn't really know about. It's new to me, I guess, not new to Postgres, that you can map dependencies between columns, statistical dependencies. And if you do this, so like if you have two columns that tend to be the same, for instance, you can use, it'll realize, you can basically mark that these have some kind of one-to-one relationship. And if you do this, it helps with the planner, the query planning, because now the query planning will it won't make a wrong. By default, it assumes columns are statistically independent. So if you have two things, if you query two columns, if you're filtering on two columns like that, it assumes the probability of each is independent unless you indicate a dependency. And then if you get a dependency, it'll realize that it's not as rare as you're thinking. So this works better. It's better at figuring out, estimating how much a filter actually filters out, which in turn allows it to make better decisions about how to do queries. So arcane details of Postgres, but still kind of neat stuff to know. So we did that. We did that for the half columns, the tables and half itself, and I also did it for the HiveMind tables as well. So both of those have that data now. I don't think we've done it for any other tables right now, but those are the two. Both half and HiveMind have the really big tables, so that's where the statistics matter the most right now. Let's see. So moving on to HiveMind, yeah, just in beyond the dependency stuff, we also fixed a bug in the new notification code, and we also fixed a bug in the new following code. But I think at this point, both of those are working fine, except of course, from how I was looking at the notification code, it's found some issues that I guess that have always been there related to the community notifications. So another thing we're doing in HiveMind, and it actually comes out of another project that we're working on. We're working on a project called HiveSense, and HiveSense is basically doing semantic search, which is like basically AI-based search using vector embeddings. And while we're doing that, we also decided to add full text search to HiveMind itself. So I think that work's going along pretty fast, and I think we'll have both regular full text search and AI-based search available on like a beta test level. I think we'll be able to get a beta test site up in maybe 2 weeks, just seeing the way things have been going so far. The reason we're doing both is there's a couple reasons. First of all, the full text search computationally is a lot less heavy. Generally, when you're doing AI-based search, you're going to want to have a GPU to be generating the vector embeddings, at least initially, when you're first filling up your database. And full text search is much cheaper to compute. It's also just about when you're doing simple single keyword search, full text search is basically, it's just as good, if not better, than AI search in that case. Where AI search really shines is if you're trying to describe a post in a little more detail, like you're saying, find a post about table tennis in the 2020 Olympics or something like that. And so when you have a lot more, when you're describing a post more with a lot more words, then AI search that's where it really shines. But if you're just doing simple you type in something like movies, then you're better off with just a full text search. It's faster and actually probably works better too, unless you actually want to find other things besides movies, that you just use the word kind of generically. So people have different opinions on that, but personally, I think it's nice to have regular keyword-based search as well. And certainly it's much more lightweight. Oh, go for it.
So, quick question regarding HiveSense. This is a half application or is it a Hive-D application?
It's a half application.
Okay.
Yeah, basically all our applications are we trying to maintain Hive-D to as minimal as basically like our core of our system, right? So imagine like in your operating system, it's your core operating system kernel, and we don't really want that to be something we have to expose much. And then half is like the outer layer of all the available services that you have that surround the kernel.
Okay. And HiveMind is also a half application then.
That's right. So yeah, it's HiveMind. So HiveMind basically is the one that serves up all this. It provides all. So all these I call them. I initially called them half apps, but I feel like maybe I did a disservice to everyone because a half app is basically like an API server. Any half app serves up a set of API calls. So like HiveMind serves up the API calls for all the social media things.
Okay.
And like Balance Tracker serves up data related to account balances, for instance. And so HiveSense has a new API, and right now I think it only has 2 API calls in it. One's called something like find post, and another one's called like find similar posts. So one API, you just pass it a query of what you describe the post you want to find, or post. It'll find a set of posts that match that most match that description. And the other API call, you actually pass it a post itself, and it'll find similar posts.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So like, like a related, how sometimes you see a site where you're on a site, it'll say related posts. That would be kind of what this would allow you to do.
Okay, and this could easily, replace a Hive Searcher by CodeKarma, right?
It could, yeah. So Hive Searcher is a text-based. I think it uses Elasticsearch, but so it's kind of different technology. I think they're all. I will have to see how they all work out, right? Because we right now we're basically going to have 3 searches. We're going to have an Elastic-based search, which is what he's got. We're going to have a text-based search, which is different from what he's got, and it's also built into HiveMind. The thing about that one is it's going to be really fast and really lightweight. So I think the text-based search, we could easily get all the API servers to implement that. So that's kind of like the base level that everybody will have that level search all the API servers can perform. The HiveSense, since it's a little more computationally intensive, it's yet to be determined whether every API server is going to be able to run it or not. I think it's possible because you can do conversions of vector embeddings just with CPU. You don't strictly need a GPU to do it. So a CPU may be able to handle it okay for queries, as long as it's not overwhelmed with queries. So we may be able to get HiveSense deployed on all the servers as well. But if we don't, basically we can still have a couple servers that run it, and then the API nodes can just redirect that traffic to those servers. So that's kind of the nice thing about the way we've got our architecture set up is it's very easy for an API server to send individual calls to another server if they want to. Generally what they do is say if you want to take your server down, but you don't want to have it completely down, you can redirect all your traffic to somebody else's server, but you can do it more specifically. So you can send specific calls to another server. In fact, we kind of do that already. There's this one call, it's a kind of deprecated call when you broadcast a transaction that we told people not to use it anymore, but some apps still use it. But because it's it puts a load on sites to implement that call, we have it built into the stack that call is actually redirected to our server, so that we have a special server that's just to process that one thing, and therefore it doesn't slow anything else down. So, but we have that kind of nice capability in our stack to redirect traffic from one service to another internally if they don't support a particular feature.
Okay. So just to clarify and make sure I'm not making any mistakes, you mentioned that there's Elastic-based search and there's a text-based search that is in HiveMind, and HiveSense is using that. Did I mix that up?
No. So there's three text searches. So there's Elasticsearch, which is completely outside of our setup. It just that server, I don't know the details of it, but basically what it does is it reads data from HiveMind and creates its own Elasticsearch database, and it has a search API. Now we're adding a new API to HiveMind that does a full text search, and so that generates a new table and a new index for doing full text search.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then finally, we have a separate half app called HiveSense. And what HiveSense does is it reads the post data from out of HiveMind directly, just the post. It doesn't look at the full text search at all. It doesn't use the full text search capability. It just reads the posts, and then for each post, it creates a vector embedding. A vector embedding is it's like an AI description of a post. It's like just a sequence of numbers that that describes the concepts that are embedded in a particular post.
Okay.
So we get one of these vectors for each post, and then when you type in a sentence to say, find me a post, you type in a natural language sentence to describe the post you want. That sentence gets converted into a vector embedding on the fly by an API server, and so now you got this vector, and it does a search to find posts that match that are closest match to that vector in terms of like a vector distance.
Okay. Now it's clear. So on the topic of the first one, the elastic web searching, the Hive Searcher, that is based off that is an app based off Hive Daemon or Hive D, or what is it?
So you're saying the existing Hive Searcher, right? That uses an Elastic. That uses a separate database. It's not it's not in Postgres.
Okay.
He's got his own Elastic.
His own node. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he actually asked me if he should continue working on it since we were doing the full text search. But first of all, I didn't know how long the full text search was going to take, and also we still don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see the performance of the different systems to see which there may be different cases where you want to use different ones. The Elasticsearch might be really good for like recency and stuff like that. Although Postgres is, I'm pretty impressed by I started reading through more and more of the stuff they have for full text search, and they have a lot of capability in there. It's all pretty cheap to use too. So they really thought through a lot of the cases, and modern PostgreSQL has a bunch of stuff built in for simple keyword-based text search, much more than I would thought they would have had. So I think it's going to be really cool to have that in the system. And it solves one of the long-standing problems. Everybody knows it's really hard to find old posts and things like that. And this is really, I think that problem's going to completely go away with these releases.
Yeah, I'm using Hive Searcher in several of the apps I'm making, and yes, I have always a problem with it finding the relevant posts. So that's why I'm curious about the HiveSense.
I think HiveSense should do a really good job at that. It'll basically, it's very similar to the way, if AI search works so much better at Google now than, regular tech keyword search.
Yeah, correct.
It's very similar kind of thing. So it's using the same kind of technology, basically.
So is HiveSense live?
We have a...
Yes, it was even featured in the latest DebiDevs posts with I think URL to how to find that.
Yeah, and so that's publicly accessible now, Gandalf. I wasn't sure if it was publicly accessible.
Hold on, this is the latest Blocktrace post, right?
No, he's talking
actually, it's not published yet.
Yeah, I didn't think it was.
Okay, so soon.
So soon.
Okay, good.
I was thinking I hadn't seen a post that indicated it was public.
Okay, great. Then it was useful for me to bring this up then.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so just a little data about that, about both of those. The vector embeddings add about 110 gigabytes to the database, so not bad at all, really, in the scheme of things. I think the full text search data is going to be around the same, around 100 gigabytes. So pretty relatively reasonable weight for all the capability we're getting there. And basically, it does a search on both the title and the body of the posts. It concatenates them together and does a search on the full thing. And there's a lot of details. We've been experimenting with a lot of things, especially on the AI side of it. There's a lot of different ways you can create the vector embeddings and do it efficiently and do it in a way that improves search. So it's a lot more complicated than just throwing a post at it and vectorizing it, unfortunately. There's a lot of details. For instance, just to give you a flavor for it, we don't actually generate one embedding for a post. We chunk up the post into multiple pieces and we vectorize those pieces. So also one of the things this potentially gives you is the ability to, when you search for a post, when you do your query, it could actually locate potentially where in the post the part you're interested in is at. If it's, say it's a long post and you're looking for something specific in the post, that kind of thing. Actually, some of the similar things are even available in the full text search, which also surprised me. That's why I said Postgres has a lot of capability there. They had similar capabilities for finding fragments, showing you fragments within a side of a post that are relevant to your search, for instance. So that's, like I said, a lot of details there, and I'll probably write a post later that covers some of that stuff, but it's too detailed for today. Other stuff working on, we've been doing a lot of work on WorkerBee lately. So WorkerBee is a Python-based bot library. It's built on top of the Wax API library that we have. And so we kind of wanted to stress test out WorkerBee. And to do that, I guess we created a voter bot. And so then we also set up a mirror net, if I understand it correctly, and basically used the Colony plugin to generate a huge number of posts, basically to fill all the blocks with posts. And so we were doing this basically to stress test how fast WorkerBee could process data. And as a result, we found several bottlenecks in the bot's performance. They've been fixed now. And from what I understood, originally it took 13 hours to process a week's worth of posts, and now it's down to about 15 minutes. So substantial speed up there. One of the main bottlenecks that we found out in this process was actually in Wax itself, and the speed that Wax was processing transactions and the way it was doing it. So we made changes to the way it processes transactions, and that was, so basically we not only got a big speed up in WorkerBee at the end of the day, but more importantly, we got one at Wax, which is kind of fundamental to all our front end apps. Let's see what else. So other things in Wax. So I mentioned we did an optimization, the transaction processing of Wax. We also had that MetaMask plugin that we wrote about, I guess, in the BDevs posts, and we passed the audit process for that now. I think there were only trivial changes required to pass the audit process after they looked at it. So that's pretty good news to have that finally out of the way. And I think now we're just waiting for them to publish. They have to publish like an official list. They'll add us to our list, but now it's nothing on our side at this point. We're just waiting for them to do it, basically. The other thing in Wax, I guess, is pretty significant recently is we added Python Wax. The Python version of Wax, we added support for the HiveD API. So if you remember earlier, I was talking about we created Swagger pages for all the HiveD APIs. And so that was in service of this in part. So we did it not only for the documentation aspect and testing aspect, but also so that Python Wax could now have bindings to make those API calls. So now you can use Python Wax to make all the HiveD API calls, basically. Let's see what else. So that's about it for Wax. We made some improvements to Beekeeper. Beekeeper is for those guys who don't know, it's an API server for storing private keys. So it's kind of a back-end process. We use it in Clive and Denser to store the user's keys. We made some improvements to the way Beekeeper and the Python library called Beekeepy, which we used to communicate with it. So Clive is our command line. I say command line, but it's hard to describe it. What it actually is, what terminal user interface, I think is the term that we're using to communicate to. So Clive is basically a wallet for Hive, but it's a very, it's a low level wallet you can use without graphics. And so it uses Beekeeper to store keys. And so these changes were basically to make it easier for that communication between the Clive and Beekeeper to work well. So finally, on the front end side of things, we did release a new version of Clive, the wallet I was just talking about. The main changes, we added new key bindings, simplified key bindings, and we added a new page where you can see the authorities for all your accounts. So this is kind of nice. You can go in there and basically look and see if you're wondering if you've got it's not a big deal for simple accounts where they just have simple keys for all their authorities. But if you have an account that supports multi-sig or something like that, Clive makes it much easier to take a look at that and see how the structures, what authorities and how it's all put together. So it's kind of a quite nice thing. Hold on a second. Hey, I'm almost done. I'll call you back in about 10 minutes. Okay, see ya. Sorry about that. Let's see. So, and finally, we've also been working. Getting Denser ready. Denser is the replacement for Condenser. And so we've improved the overall performance of Denser, just this rendering pages and things like that, especially improved performance on the server side. So not only the performance on the server side, but also SEO optimization. We generate more metadata now, which helps on SEO optimization. So that's the main reason we have server-side rendering, is just for SEO optimization. Anyways, I have to go soon, so I'm going to wrap my side up, and whoever else wants to go next can go.
I'm happy to give some updates.
Go for it.
Okay, thanks. So I really love this update regarding the Hive Sans. This looks very promising. I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes out. I mean, that's a key breakthrough for Hive. I mean, for search and
yeah, the technology can be interesting for a lot of
okay,
things.
I'll start with.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so in terms of some updates from our side regarding Block Explorer. So through last month, we added the all blocks page, which allows searching across all the blocks for the Hive blockchain. We also included a live mode so that when the user goes to the all blocks page, they can actually keep streaming all the blocks that are coming through. You can pull via a chevron all the ops which are loaded dynamically on expansion. You can filter out by account, by all the filtering that we usually have for the different search criteria. So I think this was a really neat addition that you can go through any block and visualize all the components of the block on a single page. We also added this into the landing page. We swapped the old block search, which resulted only in showing numbers of blocks, into a full display with limited number of columns, also available on the landing page, so that you can see more details about your blocks. We added, as you mentioned, Dan, the Hive transaction statistics. We utilized the new API endpoint to display on the landing page additional details about transaction statistics, also a model view that allows you to view details on a daily, weekly, or monthly, minimum, maximum, average transactions happening per single day for on Hive. This is, by the way, already public on your favorite Test Explorer and also on HiveScan. Okay, so we also made a change to the UX so that we have a unified display across all the tables on the app. We've had discrepancies in how tables display data and the formatting in the UI. So we made changes all across to unify this whole experience. Because of some API responses, we came up with an innovative approach to display in the search results a block segmented view. Because sometimes when you get the pagination, maybe you get 8 pages, but when you run out of pages, you need to perform another pull to grab new data. So we came up with a new approach so that we display which blocks are currently covered in the current search result. So you can pull up a new segment of blocks to pull up a new set of results, and you can backtrack to the old segment. So this is like a paginated segments of block that you can go through different search results. This is, of course, due to the limitations in the API, but I think the result is really fabulous. We added savings to the balance chart, both on the user profile and on the full display. So you can see your savings in the full view in the mini chart, whether you have Hive or, more importantly, HBD, and they both show on the same chart for the user. we switched all the searches by default to non-filter. Before they were all limited to 30 days. So now, because of the improvements in the API, there isn't really a need to pull a limitation by default on the search results. So we just switched this to a no filter default. We are doing some revamp on the voters dialog display. I think my dev just pushed a change today. So there's a new improvements happening on the voters dialog, like a weighted based display, a cool chart, additionally to the tabular display where you can see like vote distribution and whatnot. We are looking also to add searching within the voters list for any witness. We do have a ticket for a new API endpoint that would allow to search or filter by a voter within a witness's voters list. We are also looking to expand, to introduce pagination into the voters' history. So when we talk about witnesses' voters' history, currently it only returns 100 results. So we also have a ticket underway for pagination results on the history. What else? Okay, so we added also a few tickets for fetching account proxies. So now we have, I think, Dan, you already had this ticket some time ago for the Block Explorer. So this requires some new API, which I think is not too complex. My dev will be working on this so that we can actually get a list of proxies for every account and the amount that they proxy. We also would like to get some of the changes we were planning a few months ago. So the total value locked on chain for Hive, history of total value locked, like savings, vests, and whatnot. This I think will be also a cool addition to the Block Explorer. Transfer volume and history of transfer volume. So we already put in a few tickets for those. How many daily transfers? How much is the blockchain active financially? How much Hive, HBD are being transferred? Power down. Total user count, active users count. I think this is waiting on a change, maybe on the Hive D level. Okay, what else? I think basically this is it for now. And I actually had a quick question. Do we have any endpoint that allows us to fetch the top holders list, maybe by Hive, by vests, by HBD?
I don't think so.
I haven't
Yeah.
stumbled upon.
No, we don't have. I mean, it doesn't sounds quite trivial to add to Balance Tracker, I would think, because Balance Tracker already has all the balances.
Yeah.
So it should be a very trivial add, I think.
Yeah, I'll probably assign it to my dev to also work on something like this. I think it will be really helpful.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think really this is it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I don't at the moment. I think I'll need to think about it. I'll probably respond more later, especially since I'm running out of time.
Could I give a quick update?
Yes, sir.
No worries.
So very quickly on the Valiban, what we have done is we have first, I'm including some links. This is the first retention information for the users. What we've taken is we've taken the 63,000 users, and across the users, we have taken their HP balance of as of May 13th, and we've taken their user activity. The user activity comprised of taking all 37 operations that were available, from everything from account updating to witness voting or whatever it is, and we took it across all the users. Then we took the most recent activity, and we checked if it was like 2 months old. If it's 2 months old, then it's retention by activity. We tried doing it for 2 weeks, but the results were horrible, so we increased it to 2 months so we would have better retention. So there is 2024 and there's 2025. So for 2024, we did it across 63,000 users. For 2025, so far there's 25,000 users that have been onboarded. You guys can go and just check and give any feedback. We have divided the retention in 2 ways. One is retention by HP, and what is retention by activity. Later on, I'm hoping that we will be using this data to cross-section and find out who are actually the extractors in the system versus the people who are actually contributing. On that particular topic, we were able to find out through information in this particular page. And this basically shows you all the creator stats. So we noticed that there was a creator, an account creator named as Mighty Possible, who had 337,000 comments. The fun part is he only has created 13 accounts in 2024, meaning he was using, an abuse. He was abusing the system. It turns out there was an account named AI Summaries, which was, putting the heavy strain on the system by, printing out AI slop, and then people were upvoting it, and then he was sending that Hive and rewards back to Might Possible. So it turns out, and when we compared the rest of the accounts, he has many accounts, and it turned out that he was doing it with multiple accounts. So he found an abuser in this way. The next step on this particular thing is we're hoping, right now the devs are working to integrate the Spaminator, and then we have some blacklist from Acidio, and we have a blacklist from Markey. We're hoping to take all of that and integrate it into this particular site, so that users are marked by if they've been blacklisted by the Spaminator and all of that. With this way, I'm hoping that we will be able to get more information across onboarders who are creating shit accounts, printing slop, upvoting it, and then sending the rewards back to themselves. Of course, they're free to do so, but there's a limit to how much you want to abuse. So we hope that this will set it in the right place. So that's for this. The retention part, while it is very much clear about what we're doing, we're trying to figure out a cron job system where we can automatically fetch this enormous amount of data, and put it in our own databases so we can do the filtering and everything. So we're still working on it. Of course, there's a limit because 37 operations across 63,000 plus 25,000 users. That's 88,000 users. It's a huge query, and it takes a lot of time for it to run. So right now we've been struggling with that. We've been having to do it manually because it times out. So we are hoping to figure that out. Once we have the Spaminator and all of that stuff in, these users that you're seeing, for instance, in this particular, the Mighty Possible one, we'll be able to see, okay, this particular accounts are blacklisted. Okay, so if 6 or 8 accounts of this person is blacklisted and he has created 13 accounts, then we can see a pattern. Okay, so this is a serial offender where he just creates accounts, does the AI thing, takes the rewards, sends it back into himself. So hopefully we can identify some gaps. And I'm hoping to, use multiple blacklists together, bring them in, so that we can have less cat fights in fraud and abuse, and more than people can just compare. Okay, you know what? This is missing from his blacklist, and this is what is missing from his blacklist. So that's the next step. From the onboarder side, now that we have created the retention data, we are now going to take the next step where we're going to take the onboarders, all of them, and we're going to do a comparison of how many of these users is retained by HP, retained by activity, super retained, or non-retained. This way, what will happen is we'll be able to identify which onboarders' quality is higher or not. One of the other things we will do is once we integrate the Spaminator and the other blacklist, we'll be able to see across which user or which onboarder we're seeing the most blacklisted accounts. So that will give us a complete, accurate measure of which user is onboarding shit, which onboarder is onboarding shit, and which onboarder is actually doing the effort of, onboarding quality people. Of course, there's you can't control what you onboard, but if 85 or 86% of your onboarding is shit, then it's bad. Case in point, Leo Water, if you were to go through it, only has 52 users, which are super retained out of the 18,000 plus in 2024. That's just an example. So so you will get accurate measures of how each onboarder is performing, and that I hope will let people make informed decisions instead of just being influenced by passion and enthusiasm. So that's it from my side. If there is any feedback anyone can give to improve the retention thing, we did because Gandalf mentioned it 2 months ago, and it was helpful. It put us on the right track. We wanted okay, this fits in. So if there's any other metrics or anything someone wants to do, then please share with us. We would love to work on anything that might provide information for the betterment of Hive.
Okay, sounds good. I really do have to go soon. So anybody else have anything last minute before we call it a day? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, see you guys next time.
Thank you. See you.
Thanks.
See you
Right.
guys.
Take
Bye.
care, guys. Bye.
Bye.